So just reflecting on the Justice for Palestine event that we had, there was a Catholic school trustee who came up to me and asked me how I was doing. And I said, well, I'm not doing very good at all because we have this family that's not being supported by the Catholic school board. And she said, well, I was just trying to be polite. And I said, well, the gatekeeping of the report that you claim to have is hurting this family. They haven't even had access to it. And then she said, well, there's a lot more there than you know. And I was like, well, the RCMP have been more helpful than the Calgary Catholic School Board. And then she tried to talk about the group of Indigenous people that she surrounds herself with to try to protect herself from the work that they're doing. And I said, well, you can't gatekeep and use other Indigenous people when you have an Indigenous family that's hurting, that you're refusing to support. So that was at the start. That was before I even had my speech. And my speech was the most unpopular. Why? Because a lot of folks don't want to understand that they are part of the settler state called Canada. And the other part is that I stand with queer Muslims. And there were folks that were slated to speak that refused to speak because of that issue and that issue alone. And as far as I know, I'm the only person who spoke about that issue. You know, it's important to understand Indigenous people were here first. So if you identify as some proud Canadian, you're doing it at the expense and genocide of Indigenous peoples. And Two-Spirit were here first. So if you're for gendered violence, you know, you have to understand that's what Israel's doing. You kill all of the women and the children, and then, you know, of course, Palestinians will die. That is what genocide is. And yet here, you know, there's still that understanding that violence against Indigenous women, violence against the Two-Spirit were here first. It's not okay. So you can't just stand for some human rights. You have to stand for them all. And that's what Canada's supposed to do. It doesn't do a great job of it, that's for sure. We have a whole lot of reports with a whole lot of recommendations and calls to justice and calls to action that never get implemented. So really analyze what that means and look at all of the different things it takes for me to show up to say a speech and how much violence I have to endure by people who think they're standing for Palestine at the happy oppression of Indigenous peoples. It's not okay. So if you truly consider yourself some sort of ally of Indigenous peoples, you have to start looking at yourself and looking at your role in the settler state. Why are you okay with happily calling the police on Indigenous people when we get in their custody and die? That's why we have this vigil tomorrow at 6. Would Sonny Crazy Bull be here had the police not arrested him? He died there. I know ACERT said it was fine. Yay, ACERT. But like I said to the Calgary Herald, or no, not the Herald, the Cochrane something or other, I said, the settler state always upholds the settler state. So if you support Indigenous people, who are you following that's Indigenous? Who are you amplifying? Because I see a lot of people speaking for Indigenous people and not amplifying our voice. So conveniently, no one knows where to ever look for these things. Well, the Reconciliation Action Group has lots of social media. I have lots of social media. It is willful at this point for folks to not know these things.